So let's get this started. Hi, thank you so much for coming tonight to our second Visiting Artist in the School of Art Visiting Artist Lecture Series. I have a couple announcements before I actually introduce Andy and tell you a little bit about him. Tonight, after this lecture, there's an opening in the 840 gallery for the reception of Process, a Collaboration. So please, once this is over, make your way. I guess we're on the floor. So just kind of go this way to the 840 gallery and check out the opening. There'll be snacks and a reception immediately following this. I also want to thank the Agnes Kroll Blackburn Visiting Artists Foundation and the Elise Zeller Sauer Fund for the Fine Arts, both of those which make this visiting lecture series possible. Tonight, I'm so pleased to have Andy Byers come to Cincinnati to speak to you. He's someone who's been on my short list since I first started working here. Andy received his MFA in 2005 at The Ohio State University in ceramics and a BFA at the Kansas City Art Institute in 2003. For the past 5 years, he has worked alongside producer and art director Rick Gilbert, making a number of short films and commercials, including Isabella Rossellini's Green Porno series. These films had led to a number of art exhibitions, including installations at the Berlin Film Festival and the Royal Ontario Museum. Most recently, Andy is working on large-scale installation for the Smithsonian Zoo in Washington, D.C. In addition to his work in film, he also owns and runs a production company that makes props and prototypes for both window displays and print, whose clients include many major retailers. Andy's visiting here from Los Angeles, California, and I couldn't be happier. So please welcome Andy Byers.
Thanks, everybody, so much. I'm really happy to be here. I've had a really lovely time visiting with some of the grad students here, and everyone's been incredibly sweet and wonderful, and it's a great town and an awesome city and a super good school, so I'm happy for you guys. I thought I would spend our time just kind of introducing you guys to some of the things that I do and kind of run you through the ways in which I work and kind of, I don't know, how my process works a little bit. And then maybe we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for some questions if you have any. As Katie was mentioning, I kind of have a lot of different facets that I work upon. I'm a filmmaker and a sculptor and a designer, set designer, and a ceramicist when I need to be and want to be. So I'll show you kind of a variation of all those different things, and just kind of maybe see how those relate in a way. So I wanted to start off with just some. This image and this image here are. So I have kind of two places that I'm working right now, and one of them is in a commercial world, and one of them is in an art world, usually making, things for other people, but always with my hand being present and my thoughts being present. So something like this is a photo shoot for a Levi's commercial, and something like this is the city of Manhattan made out of paper for a movie. So I get to have a wide range of things that fill up my day and fill up my time, fill up my energy. I get to put people in ridiculous costumes all the time, and I get to put people in really, beautiful outfits when I need to. So when I'm not making art, and when I'm not working on films, how I make my living is in the commercial world. So I'm a set designer, making so in this image here, I made all the props that the ladies are, interacting with. So my time is usually split between making something creative for myself and making something creative for somebody else. And I'm going to kind of run you through how, this image here, makes this image here, and why I like this image better. My place where I'm happiest, my place where I want to spend all of my time is on set. Not because it's the magic of movies, because it's the magic of collaboration. Collaboration is an incredibly important tool for me in making the things that I make, and that's why filmmaking is really important to me, because you can't do it on your own. You need, a lot of people to make something happen. And I was lucky enough to, in the beginning of my career, just jumping out of grad school, landing with someone who landed me with this woman, Isabella Rossellini. And before I started working with Isabella, I actually didn't even know who she was. It was not until I actually started making films with her I found that she was like a sex symbol and had this huge history behind her. And it was incredibly freeing to have her say to me, I want to fuck a fly, and I want you to make me a costume where I fuck a fly. And so we spent about 4 years making over 30 short little films that discuss how animals have sexual relation with one another, either through their seductive acts or through their sexual acts. And she wanted each of these films to feel like anybody could make them, that they were simple, that they were plain, and that they were graphic, which was what really struck me. She said, I want all these things, even though we're making them for a big production company and they're going to be what they are, I want them to look like a cartoon. And so I said to her, well, let's just make everything out of paper. And so that single statement became the defining statement for all the rest of the films that we made, because I ended up, if it was possible to make it out of paper, I would make it out of paper. And the limitations that paper presented itself to me allowed me to keep things incredibly simple. And that's kind of what she wanted, and along with it being what she wanted, it helped me to influence the way I wanted to talk about, these sets and this lighting and these costumes. And it got so far into the place where I was like, okay, let's just make, she said at one point in time, she's like, let's make a cooking show. So we had a big cooking show, and I made her entire kitchen out of paper. So this is pretty much what her kitchen looks like at her own home. We just remade it all in paper. And then we shot some, just like a Martha Stewart kind of cooking show. And Martha Stewart's been incredibly influential to me, and I love this woman, and I love the things that she does. I love her craft. I love her simplicity, and I love the way that she presents things. And so Martha Stewart became a big inspiration for both of us, and the way that we were then talking about, how we wanted to show our ideas. So I thought I would, I'm going to kind of go back and forth a little bit between showing you images and then showing you some films, just to kind of break things up a little bit, because while these are fun to look at for me, they're more exciting to look at in a video. So like I was saying, we spent over 4 years making, I think, something like 34 films, and each of these films run 2 to 3 minutes long. And throughout that time, I made all of her costumes, I made all of her sets, I made all of the props, I was the lighting designer, and I was also the music designer. So I was able to really, push my way into this world of art making that I had otherwise, like I came out of a ceramics background, and I moved to New York, and I was like, I want to work in movies. And I happened to have the luxury of connecting with someone that was willing to open themselves up to all kinds of different possibilities. I'm showing this image because I feel like this talks a lot about what's important about these films and what is important to me in making them, which is this idea of trickery that you see directly on the screen. This idea that magic exists in the realm of the film. Magic exists in what you watch. And, as I've gotten older and older, I've started to learn how that magic is made. And that's become really important to me. As a younger boy, like Pee-wee's Playhouse was like really, really a big part of my life. Not because I really liked the show actually scared me, but I liked looking at the way things moved. I liked looking at the way that they would like bring an object in, bring an object out. I was like, is that string? Is that what are making these things happen? Like as a child, it's all just like, wow, it's awesome. Look at this crazy shit that's moving around. And then as I got older, I started realizing there are people behind all of these puppets. This chair has somebody like behind it doing these things. And so that is a main focus on all the films that we made, that while we were sort of giving you this like moment of film magic, we wanted to make sure that you were aware of how these tricks were being played out. So I thought I would just play you a couple of these. I'll start with this one here, which happens to be my favorite one, and I'll show you a couple others. I also wanted, because I'm just going to play a couple right in a row. This first film, the reason that I'm most attracted to this particular short is I finally was able, by living in New York and just kind of, I don't know why, I don't know how it became part of my eye and part of what I was interested in, but I got really interested in the idea of dancers and people that moved, but people that weren't actually giving dialogue. So it was another way to translate saying something without having to say something. And over time, dance became more and more and more important to me, to the place where now I don't make films unless I have dancers in the films. So let me show you a couple of these. We'll see how this goes.
Is he seducing me? Anything goes? What am I, a dolphin? Dolphins engage in many affectionate and sexual activities. Leaping, chasing, playing, splashing. They disappear and reappear and dive in the depths of the sea. Stroking, caressing, nuzzling each other until they are ready to mate. Heterosexual couples mate in the missionary position. All alone, masturbating. What's this buzz? It's a genital buzz. It stimulates genitals with pulse sound waves. Oh, oral sex. Oh, fin sex. 2 females. Oh, a male. 2 males. Oh, blowhole sex. Anything goes. Are they seducing me? What am I, a deer? Male deer and antelope grow weapons on top of their heads. And rather than killing each other, they engage in competitions, like sports. Females watch the males fight in sports arenas called leks. Hey, champ!
Choose
Pick
me.
me.
Champ, come on, pick me.
Hey,
Mate
champ.
with me.
Me.
Come
Me.
on, choose me. Choose me.
Oh, no.
Why did you choose her with those ears?
Picked her. Champ.
Choose
Me.
Champ.
Me, choose me, please.
Pick me. I can't believe you picked her.
I don't want to be the last one in the harem. It wouldn't be good. Champ, please.
Pick me.
Please, champ, pick me.
Over here.
Me.
Champ, pick me.
Oh, no. He'll be too tired.
Oh, even the other males, the velvet horns, the bachelors, get to have sex. Same-sex sex.
Come on, champ. It's my turn. Come on. Whoops. We exhausted the champ.
Hey, losers! Where is the runner-up? Where is the silver medalist?
He'll do. Let's mate.
So I'll play you guys 2 more of these, and then let's see what let's do this one. I like this one.
Nothing in there. Is he seducing me? What am I, a seahorse? In the Cygnatidae family, which includes sea dragons and pipefish, it's the male that gets pregnant. My pouch is empty, ready to receive eggs, so I open and close it to entice a female to make me a father. Here she is. She holds my tail. She likes me. She wants to dance. She wants to be seduced. Oh, her eggs. She deposits them into my pouch. I'm pregnant. Oh, my cousin, the pipefish. He's pregnant too. Oh no, he likes a new female. He aborts his eggs to make room for a new pregnancy. Postcopulatory selection. First he screws, then he chooses.
So I'll tell you guys a quick story about this particular episode before I do want to show you 2 more of these. But so when we were filming these, the DP, the director of photography, he comes over there to me, and I had 2 sets of 2 dozen eggs. 1 dozen was hard boiled, so that we could have this, these eggs like roll down this little track into her pouch, and 1 was not, so that we could make them crash and splatter onto the ground. And the DP says, he comes over, he's like, I bet you can't tell which one of these. I think he knew what he was doing. He's like, I bet you can't tell which one of these is like hard boiled and which one it's not. I was like, of course you can. Like, pick one up. Like, 1 shakes, 1 doesn't. He's like, you can't do it. And so he picks them up. He's like, look, I can't tell. And he starts putting them back. And I was like, keep those in order. And he's like, oh yeah, we're fine. We're all set. And so I put them all back, and we go back to shooting. And I've got a friend of mine inside the other costume who's like dumping the eggs into Isabella's like crotch, basically. And so these eggs start coming down, and she's like delivering her lines, and all of a sudden, like, all this like stuff starts dripping out of the bottom of her crotch, and she's like, what the fuck, Andy? I was just like, it was his fault, I didn't do it. And Nicola had switched up the eggs so that they crashed in her pouch and made a huge mess and destroyed my costume, but I got to like, wet her crotch, I guess you want to say. So I thought I would just show you actually two more examples of what what Isabella and I were trying to do in these. And if you can't already get a sense, I actually was able to, the greatest thing about being able to work with Isabella for so many years is I was able to begin to define my own vocabulary of how I wanted to talk about things. And it became in such a way that she started relinquishing her own power over to me, because over time I started understanding my own way of thinking. And I think that's really important, as you continue to move forward in whatever you're doing, is to start building your own vocabulary of like what you're trying to say. You can continue to change your whole life, but like to start building a way to speak that says this is who I am, even though you're doing lots of different things, that was really key for me to continue, moving forward, making these things exciting for myself. This one here, which I'm about to show you, Isabella said to me, Andy, I've got this idea. I would like to make a room full of penises. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And that became, we were able to spend $10,000 on that one comment right there. So I spent a whole month researching, I don't know how many I ended up making, but a number of different animal penises that Isabella would walk through. She said, I want a forest of these things to be able to move through. So that's what we did here. So this is not necessarily as like, it's a different sort of take on what we were doing, and it's only one that's like this.
Eggs are precious. Sperm are cheap. Sperm come by the millions, but not eggs. I might have 400 eggs. If I were a female, any female, I would want to protect my precious eggs. I would want to hide them in a hole, and I would want that hole to be in a place hard to reach. Unless I want you to reach me. Penises. Different penises, all trying to get as close as possible to my eggs. But I would have a tunnel, and it would be a labyrinth. It would be intricate. It would be unique. It would be species specific, so that I'm not screwed by a bear. Penises, species specific, each one unique to their respective vaginas. A cozy fit, like a hand in a glove. That's why I want my vagina.
So after we made this episode called Why Vagina, she decided to write another idea which further investigated this idea of a vagina and this labyrinth that you move through. And so, as you can tell, I had a very good time working with Isabel. It was very fun. All of our meetings were always really pleasant. But she said, I'm interested in continuing this idea of what these animals' like interior spaces look like, because they're so different from our own. And that's the whole point of these things, right? They're meant to be educational, yes, funny, yes, but also just like interesting. Like, her father was Roberto Rossellini, and at the end of his life, he became sort of an entomologist. He made most of, he was a hugely successful, filmmaker, and her mother was Ingrid Bergman, so she had, very, very wide range of film life that was surrounding her. At the end of Roberto Rossellini's life, he was making these scientific films about insects and bugs and what they did and how they related to one another and how they related to us. And so that is how this idea, spawned itself into being, is she wanted to just further her father's thoughts on how, these creatures that are a tenth of our size, or even, just these little minuscule things carry similar traits and properties that we do. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm going to show you this.
Are they seducing me? What am I, a duck? Oh, they all want to mate with me with their corkscrew penises. Ouch! Forced copulation! Get away! But I evolved vaginal complexity to keep control. Ouch! Ouch! One of them is raping me. I don't care. My vaginal structure is a twisted tunnel, a labyrinth. I can block the phallus. Woo! I can discombobulate the phallus. I can trick the phallus. But the duck I like. Hey, you Drake. I want you to be my husband. A little to the right. A little to the left. There. There are my eggs. Oh, you will father my babies.
So, Isabel and I spent plenty of time making a lot of paper costumes and a lot of paper sets. And this work that I did with Isabel has completely and directly influenced the way that I look at everything else that I made, which basically comes down to it doesn't have to be complex to be right. Simplicity in your delivery can very often be the most direct way to get to your answers. The rest of this stuff I'm just going to kind of push through, make sure you guys can see everything. From a lot of the things that I'm going to show you after this came from being able to make these films and them being, distributed in the way that they were. I was invited to Wichita State University to create a series of costumes for their 100th anniversary of their gallery, and so I chose 5 different artists that they also felt were important pieces in their collection, and then make costumes based on them. So this is based on a Dana Schutz painting, and there's a Miro painting in there and a Calder painting that were all referenced. And so I was, I'm able to start throwing my own ideas into practice rather than them just being all of someone else's. And at least this costume itself, like what was really important about it is it was a centipede. So as this dancer moves through the space, all these paper, little shells kind of move with him. I was invited to London and to make a window for this company, Selfridges, which is kind of like our Macy's here. And it was a project called Project Ocean, and they invited 30 different artists to fill their 30 different windows with different window displays. And the other half of my life when I'm not able to make art and make film is I make window displays. So I'm the person that's often designing the object that's holding the stupid shirt that you're going to buy or whatever. And sometimes those are very simple, and sometimes they're a lot more complex. So this is what I made for them, which was talking about bycatch. And if you don't understand what bycatch is, I will let you read that for a second so that you can get a full understanding. part of the other thing that Isabella and I did in making these films was we wanted people to become aware of not only how animals copulate, but how they influence our own lives. And so we also made a series of short films that talked about the consumption of animals, and specifically animals from the ocean. So, and these things have stuck with me for a while. But for every shrimp that you eat, if you don't understand how shrimp are normally caught, there's a large net that drags across the ocean floor. It destroys the entire ocean floor, destroying ecosystems, coral reefs, and not only that, it captures all of these other animals inside its net. And so, and that stayed with me for now. I still don't eat shrimp. Shrimp's just like not something I touch anymore. So that's what this little window is about. These windows were certainly not about not about selling products. They were about making the world more conscious about how they took in the food that they eat. This was a piece that I was commissioned from the Canadian Architecture Center in Montreal, and it was a show called Imperfect Health, and it was speaking about again our relationship to animals and their relationship to how they affect us. And so they asked me to make 3 animals that were these are the first things you see when you enter into this space, and they were referring to the swine flu, bird flu, and mad cow disease. And so what I did to challenge myself, being that I had no other way to have a conversation with myself about this work, was I set a limit for myself. And limits are something that I find to be probably the most palpable way to get to an end result. If I don't set a limit for myself, I'll just kind of move out and I don't know what. So I like setting limits. And for this series of work, my limit was I could only cut a shape that looked like ice cream or looked like a steak. So this entire cow is a full-scale cow, and all of its pieces are cut from steak shapes or ice cream shapes. The chicken was all from Chick-fil-A symbolism. And then, and here's my cow being worked on by the conservatory. He had a little fall and a spill, so they got to bring him up on the table. And then the pig was all bacon strips and pork chops. And then when I sent them out, I wrapped them all up in big presents so that when they came in the crates, they were big presents instead of big crates. And I really love present making. That's actually my favorite thing to do, is to wrap presents. So if you happen to be a lovely enough person to get a gift from me, most likely you will not want to rip open your box. And so suck up to me and get you a really awesome present someday. These are 2 different pigs, by the way. Sorry, this pig here was a commission to give to the president, and then this pig here was the pig that was in the show. So they're slightly different, but they're still dealing with that same motif of a pig being made of its own fat, basically. This is a project that I worked on with another partner while in New York, and it's called Harvest. And this was a big departure for me in some ways. In other ways, it was very familiar to me. I was still using the language of the unitard, which became this sort of all-consuming costume that could then go off into any direction. Simple sets and a simple color scheme, but still using color when it was necessary. And the sort of simple idea of this story is a woman that lives in a world of white purity, and there are these sort of creatures that come and inhabit her space and allow her to to have the revelation that color exists in the world, and they sort of transform this woman from being this sort of prude. So she, in the beginning of the film and in the performance, she dances very tightly and very like wound up, and as the performance goes on, she really opens up to. It's very like hokey and lovey-dovey kind of thing, but that's what I wanted. I wanted to really push this idea of just showing something that was beautiful and showing something that didn't have to show violence or blood or just any. There seemed to be so many answers to a quick kind of performance that my collaborator and I wanted to stick away from, move away from. So this film is as much as it could be about love, actually, and just being sweet and carrying color and giving color its due and letting color just be color and not worrying about like any other aspect of it except for making something that's beautiful that lasted an extended period of time. And through that, I was able to get interested in photography and kind of how the photograph then represents the time spent and the idea of composing something. And so I just recently moved from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, and when I left, I put on a large performance that was called Goodbye Brooklyn. So I tried to encompass all the traits that I learned from living there, and put it into like a 45-minute performance that involved very elaborate sets and dance. And so each of these, what I did is I built a movie theater as if this was the beginning of the stage, and then behind that continued to be more series of little stages, vignettes, and screens. And so we would play each scene out. So like these dancers would come out, they would do their scene, and then we would rip through the paper and go to another scene. Other than one instance in which I am having a conversation with my cat, who you can see there floating at the above that drummer's head, it was all just musically based and dance based. So there was no real dialogue that was going on during the performance. And so I brought all my friends out and played. And this is the puppet of myself. And so the whole point of this particular performance was I had this cat who was my ex-wife's cat. And my ex-wife left this cat with me. And I fell in love with this cat and then couldn't bring this cat along with me to Los Angeles. So I was saying goodbye to the cat, really. And so I built a puppet for myself, and I built this whole stage for this little animal that I was saying goodbye to. And so I had all these dancers like dancing, and all this thing was just for this little animal. So I really miss my cat. And these dancers were what I enjoyed about working with these particular ladies was I have no background in dance, really. I don't know how to choreograph, but I know what I want. And these women were able to work with me to just collaborate. And again, like I was saying before, collaboration is one of the things I find key in making, because I feel like you can always make something better with someone else's good ideas than you can make just by yourself. This woman on your left there was probably the most beautiful dancer I've ever seen in my life. Someday you can watch a little video of this, but I haven't put all this together yet because it doesn't make sense to me in my mind yet, how it works as a film. I filmed all of this, so I as I've been doing lately, and like I've done with this project, I will spend time to make a project, I'll film the project, then I will produce the project in a sort of play or performance, and then make documentation of the project either by a film or by a gallery. And this happened to be something where I did all of those things. I was invited to Kansas University to make a short film and a gallery performance based on, all of these are just reference images I'm showing you, but this idea based on Valhalla, which is the Vikings' heaven. And in Viking heaven, you die, you wake up in the morning, you make a huge feast, and then you go out and you have sex with whomever you want. And then at the end of the day, you fight to the death, and then you wake up in the morning and you do it again until life exists no longer. And so I came to Lawrence looking at all these images of people who spend their lives in this sort of like insular world of like, I'm going to go back to this image here. So this is, some family in Peru living off a river, and these, all the people in the back are shaman, and all the people in the, they're like family or whatever, but they live in this sort of domed world where their life exists in a way that we don't understand. And so I was taking their imagery, their costume, their sort of like ideology, and putting it into the context of Valhalla and these two people who, like live in the bottom of a basement, and they want to do the same action over and over and over again. They live in their own little bubble, and they, they spend their time doing whatever fucking stupid thing they like to do. And so these are the two guys. I'll show you this video real quick after I flip through some of these images. And we made all of this in 2 weeks, and we made it all with garbage. So we had a gallery space where we were able to come in and make everything and transform it into, something that was usable. And these women here were my dancers in this, and they actually ended up spawning stuff that, gets me excited later on in life, which is this idea of the spirit. And these women are sort of like spirit demons to me. They live in this world, not in ours, but they live in their own world. And these women like charge other things. So this project helped spawn this idea of what is a spirit, what is a demon, what does it mean to have something be possessed by something else? What does it mean to give power to an object? And what kind of power can something hold? I like these pants a lot. They were made out of our drop cloth that we were just painting everything with. But these masks, got me really excited about like who's behind this mask. What does it mean to have a mask? What does it mean to cover yourself, to carry yourself in a way that I don't understand, And from that, I had a show with my partner, who's a painter, and I was making more of these masks, but making them now in ceramic. So these are now lustered versions of the same kind of thing. They have gold on top of them. That's what's making them reflective. And these would be more like real, these are just art objects. They're not really telling a story or being part of a story. in any way. I like him, he's scary. I thought I'd just show you these real quick. These are the last sort of things I did with Isabella, just on a costume design sense, for those of you that are interested in costume designing. I sent these drawings out to a French company, and these are the costumes that came back to me, which are not at all the way that I would have made them. But they're interesting for me to look at to see how like my ideas got translated by someone else's way of thinking. Because they were the idea was they were supposed to make them like I made them, but I wasn't the one that was making them. So this is a proscenium that I made at the Wolfsonian Museum, sort of encapsulating all of the creatures that I'd made over time with Isabella. So we were invited to go in and just sort of present everything in a more formal way. At the bottom there, you can see the penis that was the penis that was attached to the camera when we were going through the duck vagina thing. So like the vagina, you know, it was like this big. It was awesome. It was great. It was like this. Everyone was so excited. There was these feathers that we would open up in and out, and they would just like put the feathers on and like kind of walk through the vagina, like I'm walking through a vagina. Yeah. I thought I would spend the last little couple minutes showing you guys some of the commercial things that I do. This is a set I made for Oprah Magazine. It's all that paper. And so she was, if you see that little book sitting on the bottom, she was like holding that book and, you know, acting like she was reading it or something. Her double looks just like Oprah. When Oprah's double comes in, I forget her name. And everyone's like, Oprah's here, Oprah's here. And Oprah comes and she sits down on the chair. And I was like, holy shit, that's Oprah? That doesn't really look like Oprah at all. She's got a double that looks just like Oprah. Here's some origami animals that I made for a Gap ad this year. If you see the guy on the side, you can get a sense of their scale. And so I made these all out of gray, and then they went in and digitally added these patterns on. All these dresses are Diane von Furstenberg. Super cute. She was really cute. And I think this may be the last image I'll show you, and then I'll show you that video real quick, and then we can have a couple questions. This is the last thing I did right before I got here. I was making some props for a Target commercial. So this girl is she's sitting down. It's it's Christmas morning or whatever. She's like, what the hell is this fucking vacuum? I don't want to vacuum. And she rips it open, and inside she rips it down and rips it down again, and there's a pair of Dr. Dre headphones. She's like, oh, cool, Dr. Dre headphones. That's awesome. And if you see the little cord that's connected to this telephone, she's like, oh, cool, what's this? What's going on? It becomes a little game. Then she goes over to this telephone, rips it open, and it kind of falls apart in this sort of wonderful origami kind of way, and there's a telephone inside. She's like, oh, cool, thanks, Mom. So part of what I do when I don't have the opportunity to make art is make art objects for commercial use. And I actually am just as excited about doing this as I am anything else, because I had to design a way in which this telephone could be ripped apart a number of times and go back together and look perfect. I had to figure out a way to make that vacuum cleaner, she could rip it apart and I had to put a new one on. She'd rip it apart and put a new one on. And the task of that kind of design is just as exciting to me as making a movie, making a costume, making anything else. So I think that's all of my images. I thought I'd show you the the video that I did for in Lawrence. This is a music video. And so, like I said, we built everything in a week. We filmed it in 2 days, and then we edited everything, and then we put a show together afterwards. And the images that I was kind of flipping through became the gallery show. So that's kind of the end of that. If you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer any of them. Yes? Oh, right.
Hang on one sec.
Getting a microphone so everyone can hear you properly. Make you
Hello?
embarrassed. No, you can keep them off, keep them off, keep them off, keep them off. Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, did you like pick out the music to go with that and everything as well, or like how much like creative like control
So
did you?
this, I mean, this is a little different, being that it's like a rock video. You know, it's like made for a music video. But we specifically chose this song because it's referring to this idea of being like tied to a system and being like a servant to something. So these two people, it's called servants. So these two people are sort of servants to themselves, right? So like they go through this ridiculous ritual act, like let's say every day, all the time, forever, thinking that they would somehow affect the rest of the world or affect their world by doing this over and over, in the same way that, you know, those people do that in Peru because it affects the way that they live. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions in the audience? Yes, if you don't have to necessarily get the microphone, I'm happy to repeat. Oh yeah, go ahead. You've got one
Okay.
there, and then you can go after.
You know how you said that where you went to that village or whatever, and they were living their own little world?
I didn't go there, just.
Oh, well,
but,
you know,
yeah.
talking about it.
Uh-huh.
Do you feel that way about the art world, and everyone interprets their own intake on art differently in their own little world?
I think unfortunately that is the case. And I say unfortunately because I feel like too often art is completely insular, and you know that art doesn't allow for the rest of the world to infiltrate it. It's, you know, art is such a masturbatory act, right? Like you just go in there and you make your shit in your studio and you're like, fuck yeah, it's awesome, you know? And that's cool, great, go do that. But so often art is made where it doesn't allow the rest of society to like be a part of that art making process, which is also fine, but I prefer the kind of art that allows you to somehow interject your own thoughts into it or whatever.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You.
Can you describe a little bit your process of making the video? Did you storyboard it? Did you decide, how did you decide the different scenes? Or
Okay.
sketch it out, write it? Well, how did you do it?
So she was just asking how the process of this particular video gets made. And I tried to do this in a similar way that I would imagine it is done. I storyboarded everything out. Half of the things that were storyboarded actually never came to fruition, and the other half of things came out of nowhere. I'm someone that likes to set up rules for myself and set up a guide, but I also want things to sort of transform in the way that they're going to. So I went in there with myself and one other friend who was one of the people in the video. And from there we went to, we were at the Kansas University Film Department, and we just had students come in and they just helped for a couple of days, like just busted their ass, like, what can you do? You can do this. What can you do? You can do this. And so the story and the scenery and the objects, they evolved by who was there and by what was available. So I had a vague idea of the way these costumes were going to be played out. I knew that I wanted one of them to have a buffalo head, and I knew the other one was supposed to be this sort of princely man-woman kind of thing. But other than that, I didn't really know. I didn't know that they were going to be doing this in like this weird little basement space until I showed up there and realized there was no other place to shoot it. And I had $100 to make a room look like something. So, you know, I would try to do it in as much of a professional way as I can, but I also wanted to leave enough opportunity for everyone that was working on the project to influence the way that it came out in the end. Someone else have a question? Yes, all the way in the back up there. Oh, we're bringing a microphone to you.
Okay, so how do you go about making your costumes? Do you have like a crew or something, or do you just do it by yourself?
Usually just do it by myself. Depending on what it is, like when I started working with Isabella, she was the one that said, I'm going to wear a unitard for this, which is really weird because you're basically naked, right? You're just in this thing, but it became a really amazing blank canvas basically to work off of. And spandex is incredibly versatile in how it, can open up and move, and you can do a lot of things with it. So if I'm working with a unitard, which almost everything that I work with, it starts with a unitard and then moves out from that, I'll almost always make it myself. Some of those costumes that were in that video, some of the other students, I'd say like when you cut out 300 feathers and glue them to the side of this girl's arm, that kind of thing. But like the big thing that was on that guy's buffalo head, that was like 30 or 40 different stuffed animals that I ripped open, cut their heads off, and dyed them so that they became like this. So he was like a mountain man carrying around his like furs, or something like that. So that kind of thing I had to do myself. If I can pass it off to someone, I will. I prefer to have other people do it because it gives them an opportunity to learn how to do what I know how to do. And that is a lot of the way I make, like I don't make these things by myself, but I try to make them look like I made them by myself. So, that answer your question? Yes. We'll come to you next. There's some. Actually, Katie, I think her mic maybe went off.
Oh.
There we go.
Sorry. I was wondering about the story behind the pig and the president.
The pig and the president?
You said that there were the two pigs that you
Oh,
made.
yes. Okay, go ahead.
And I was wondering what the story was behind sending the second pig to the president.
I should have more certainly defined that question. That was the president of the museum, not the president of our United States. So.
Hey, so I was just wondering, like you work with so many like high up people and so many different people, like how did you go about making contacts? Like, was it just like a natural process or did you go out
Sometimes
with a purpose?
it's a natural process, like the people that my soon-to-be father-in-law has this idea. He calls it the tiger letter, and it's this letter that he wrote to this company a long time ago, where he just was really honest, and he said, "I love what you do, and I want to somehow be a part of what you do." And I was just like, "That's a really great strategy." And so, the reason that I got that Target job was, I wrote to this director team, which I was like, "I love what you do. I really respect what you do. I'd love for you to take a look at what I do. Maybe we can work together." Just being really formal, but also just kind of going back to like what our grandparents did, like before there was internet and stuff. Just introduce yourself. And the more that you can do that, and the more that you can like just break yourself down and be like, "Hey, I'm either going to fail or it's going to be a success," then that's how you make it happen. Like, it's okay to be timid. It's okay to be like shy. I'm crazy fucking shy, but I'm able to somehow like talk to people when it needs to be talked about. And I think the best way to do that is find things that you're good at, and find things that that you can feel strongly talking about when you're talking about yourself. So, somebody's like, "Wow, do you know how to work a computer?" I'd walk away, But if they're like, "I saw this really cool thing in this window and it's made out of paper, blah, blah, blah," I was like, "Oh yeah, it's really cool." And, just, so, and that's usually how I'm able to talk with those people, and kind of get over that hump of like, "You're incredibly famous and I'm incredibly not." Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.